Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're live or live-ish now. Hopefully, the audio in your um in Atlanta traffic will hold up. And we're doing I think today's episode is about Tupac's "Keep Your Head Up" and the Beatles' "Let It Be." Is where we're
Correct.
getting into today, which are two
Correct.
huge songs.
Yeah, massive records. Yeah, we're talking about massive
So, um, like
records. How do you
this
want
is
to
a
start? Yeah.
the Tupac song is a song that I was familiar with. I mean, more so probably than the other
Right.
two we've done so far. Um, but I'd like to hear like what you have to say or what some opening commentary before I get into like the things that I noticed as I was listening to it a little more closely.
Okay, so one of the things that's important about this record and that people need to understand is that, hip hop was and still is in a lot of ways, very much on the machismo, the
Right.
bravado, the chest thumping, the Jersey beat, and all that stuff.
Sure.
This record was a vulnerable record
Mm-hmm. It is.
from a great artist. It's a vulnerable record.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to find too many all-time great hip-hop songs before this song as vulnerable as this song because it was not cool to be vulnerable.
Oh
And
yeah.
so what you really see is that the start of vulnerability being okay for MCs. I know a lot of people associate it with Kanye or even Drake, but this is actually where it starts. It starts with Tupac and Tupac making these style of records. These style of records are
Right.
on his first album, Tupacalypse Now, but quite frankly, he's just not as good as a songwriter or MC.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the start of it being okay for MCs to be vulnerable because this was a massive hit. This was a big hit. This was probably, I want to say, I'm trying to think. I feel like I Get Around came out first, but this
Mm-hmm.
record was even out bigger than I Get Around. I think up until the point that he made Dear Mama, this was his biggest record.
Right.
See if I can get some of that glare out.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the important historical context of the record. A lot of people talk about Tupac, and I think too often he gets remembered as Death Row Tupac, Thug Life Tupac, but no, he was
Mm-hmm.
actually like very diverse, uh, very very poetry centric and driven,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
somebody who, although he was also known to misogynize women, also understood the plight of women because was the product of a single mother household,
Right.
which led
So
to obviously just stuff like Dear Mama being
right. Exactly.
there.
And I mean, dear, we'll get into that because we'll do Dear Mama later too on a different
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. Let's get to it.
Um,
Almost done.
but this,
There we go.
there we go. Yeah. All right. But this record, man, like there's so much stuff going on in there, right? Like, um, I love that he slides in. I mean, ostensibly, it's about um persevering through struggles, right? But like and the first verse is about mothers and women generally, and the second one is specific to his mother, and then the third one is more generalized again. um but he also slides like some not so subtle social commentary in there too. It's not just
Yes.
about
Yes.
the plight of women. He's got the
So
the
I
pro-choice
know where you're going.
argument, right? Like the
Yeah.
you have no right to tell women when and where to create one. Like you have that in there,
When it rains, it pours. The money for wars, but can't feed the poor.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
another one,
So
right?
that's what I mean about the poet. So that's what I mean about the poetry centric nature of it
Mm-hmm.
coming out too. It's like, well, no, he got a topic and a subject matter, but oftentimes what happened with great poets, Andrew, they like to riff. So there's a lot of social and political commentary in here that's a riff, but because it's so astute and so poignant, it kind of makes the record still feel on message, even though he goes off message here and there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it all
but
comes
it feels
together
like they still feel like they
because
connect, right?
it does because the social and political commentary that he's giving is a direct result of the plight that he's trying to express.
Right.
Like what's going on socially and politically in the community is affecting how black women
Right.
on relationship levels, economic levels, social levels, political levels, self-esteem and respect levels just to get into intangible things that don't belong to the music per se, but more belong to the spirit, soul, personalities of human beings. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got like, I mean, without getting too deep into the social commentary, like in the big picture, but just talking about the song, like the reason the fact that they're spending money on wars is the reason that a lot of these women that he's speaking to directly are in the situation, or at least at the very, very, very least part of the reason why they are in that situation.
Well, he's talking about the lack of care for our community in the inner city,
right,
and the misappropriation of funds. So it's a 2-for-1. He's saying, they misappropriate the money, and our people need it and we never get it. Like one thing about this to speak to that, and this was the last time I checked, and this is probably 3 or 4 years ago when I checked. Every year, and this goes directly to the rhetoric that's in this song.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, I think since 1987 or 88 it is, Andrew, we've spent at least $1 trillion on intermilitary defense.
Yeah,
in this
that sounds
nation.
right.
Do you know what I mean? Do you want to break down what intermilitary defense is? I'm pretty sure most of our people who are watching us probably know, but that pretty much means you're spending money on shit that's not even here.
Yeah.
And intermilitary means outside of here.
Yep.
Right. As in international. As in bases elsewhere. So you're spending $1 trillion elsewhere about the thought of potential wars, but you don't have enough money to spend it in our communities or get people out of poverty. So, very astute commentary. Spot on.
No, I love also, I don't want to get, I'll get into the poetry of the beginning of this. Like the black or the berry part is the part that I knew, like the super famous part of this.
Right.
But the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice is a cliche almost. Like it's a phrase that had been around before, like the song. But one of the things that great poets do, and I would put Tupac in that, like, in that group, is they take things that would ordinarily be cliches and they flip them and they turn them on their heads. Correct. And they make something Correct. Else out of them. Correct. Like, so he's not saying the cliche is wrong, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, but he's adding, he adds to it, right? He adds the darker the flesh, the deeper the root. Like that's in addition to it.
Right. Well, what he's doing is almost like, when they get married, it's like something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Yeah. Well, he's taking something old and he's making it new.
Mm-hmm.
And, but also too, and this was actually what I was about to say, and you'll know this too, Tupac was involved in the art, so also on stage and an actor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's also doing a great job of pulling in the audience because the beat that he's rhyming off of is an old school sample. That's an old school phraseology. So he's bringing in a whole other demographic just in the first bar, just from the choice of the beat selection and the phraseology, and then he brings in his phraseology and flipping of it. It's subtle genius. It's all those subtle things that the great writers do that make them genius.
Yeah, he's got like the sample too. I don't know what the sample is. I mean, the actual hook, the keep your head up part, is like. Is that like not Motown, but like it's like an old school like
school child things are gonna get easier. Yeah.
Right.
I can't remember. I'm sorry, the traffic got my mind running, so I can't think of who exactly sung it off the top of my head. I would probably know if I could get stationary, but like But that's classic black R&B struggle music from the I believe I want to say that's late '60s that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that. And that goes along with a thing that I said earlier, too, like in a previous episode, that many, not all, but many, many, many of the songs that cross over from hip-hop world into like the wider / I guess you could say whiter culture are ones that have sing-along choruses to them, too. And this one does. It also has very memorable lyrics, like in the verses, too. But you can also sing the hook too, which draws in, I think, a larger audience than if it didn't have that.
Well, I love who we paired this song with because I mean, for me, a lot of people in the hip hop sphere and community love Tupac, but they do not look at him like an upper echelon lyricist. But what I submit to people is that, well, he's upper echelon as because he makes the simple divine, much
Mm-hmm.
like the group that we're about to discuss.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's why I love this pairing, because I'm like, oh, well, this is the group that's the best at making the simple divine, and this is the artist that's best at making the simple divine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, as in taking simple usage, simple words, things that you understand, things that you know, and just making it sound brilliant. Like, these themes, they're not complicated. Keep
No.
your head up. Dear Mama. Let it be. Strawberry Fields Forever. Julia.
Hey
you know?
Jude, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's not complicated. Yeah. It's not complicated. They're telling you exactly what's going on, but it still sounds divine. There's genius to that. That's high-level operational stuff right there in terms of the craft of songwriting and musical skill.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to get into the Beatles stuff, because this is like, in contrast to the first two artists that I've done, Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen, this is something that I actually do know a little bit about. So, and it's not going to do maybe a little bit more context for that. I did want to say about the beginning of the Pac song, a little bit of English teachery stuff, that the internal rhyme in those first two lines that I mentioned, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, the darker the flesh, the deeper the roots, the way it doesn't rhyme just at the end or even just in the middle. I mean, there's sounds that echo in all, like you could divide both of the lines in half, and there's sounds that echo in all four parts. Like the blacker and darker echo, the sweeter and deeper echo, the berry and flesh, the sound echoes in there.
Yeah.
And even in juice and roots. I mean, that's the rhyme at the end, but there's sounds in all of the pieces that echo themselves, not just like so it's actually, that goes to your simple divine point, right? Like it's something that sounds on the surface very simple, but when you break it down a little bit, it's actually super complex.
Well, here's what it is. Tupac is classically trained.
Mm-hmm. You can tell.
Because he's classically trained, you can tell. Because he's classically trained, here's what you get. You get somebody that uses actual literal vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
He uses the things that we learned in English and grammar, and he applies them as a writer. He uses alliteration. So if you go to America's Most Wanted with him and Snoop, picture perfect. I paint a perfect picture. Bomb a hoochie with precision. My intentions to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts off using alliteration. He's classically trained. What you're talking about is him using dissonance and consonance in terms of how he's using the words. The formatting of it, the double entendres, these are things that you're taught as a writer technically. He's
right,
a master
exactly.
of it. So that's what I'm saying. When people are like, he's not a great lyricist, I'm like, well, not the way that you're thinking, but he's in his bag the way most of your guys don't know how to get in their bag because they're not classically trained.
Yeah. There's a different layer to it.
Yeah, there's a different level. And I hate to say it because hip-hop is an uneducated sphere in terms of how it's been taught. It's hard to get that point across sometimes.
Yeah. No, he's got a lot going on in this song, and I don't want to, like, we could sit here and spend another hour talking just about the poetry in the song. Like, I mean, there's a ton there.
There's one song.
That's just the most famous example that I wanted to point out. And I guess we can transition over and then we'll come back around. But like,
cool.
You were saying, you're talking about Tupac being a great songwriter, and the other song that we're going to address is the Beatles' "Let It Be," and I mean the Beatles are. I don't know how anybody like lives and doesn't know this, but I mean maybe people younger than us don't. So, like, they are widely considered the best rock and roll band that has ever lived, and they for many reasons, for their innovation, for their songwriting ability. I don't know that it's true, but you could pretty easily argue that two of the best five songwriters in rock and roll history were both in this band, and probably three of the top 25 or 30, and they're all in the same
stay together. Right, that's why they couldn't stay together. It's amazing that they stayed together so long.
Yeah. And they only put out music from like 1962 to 1970. Like it was a really short group.
That's a long time for the talent in the room, in my opinion. Yeah. Look, way lesser talents have broken up way sooner. Way lesser talents.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And we'll talk about some of those guys later,
Yeah.
and guys and gals later too, in a different episode. But there's like you said, there's tons of examples of that, and there weren't like lots of gaps between their albums too. I mean, they were putting out one or two a year for almost a decade. And Let It Be would have come from
fans. They're like Jay-Z from like 96, 97, or like Lil Wayne on his run. They're just like cranking out material. You're like, oh my God, like they're still recording? Yeah.
Not only are they still recording, but they're putting out hits after hits after hits after hits after hits after hits.
Well, that's what I mean. When you were saying best 2 or 3 out of 5 songwriters, I thought you were talking rock albums for a second. I thought you were about to pick I was like, because it's even hard to pick. People often find themselves arguing, about within the veins of their own catalog, which they prefer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my guy Obi, who was my music producer in Cali, put me on to the Beatles. When we were recording my first solo album, we would watch the World Cup. I would play some Scarface. He would play some Beatles. We were teaching each other stuff,
Exactly, yeah.
And right. But one thing that I always noticed about them is it's like, man, like the songwriting's not complex, but it's at a high level, much like Tupac. It's super catchy, just like Tupac.
Yeah.
Very infectious. The melodies, very infectious. The subject matter is diverse. Like they express the happy well, they express the sad well, they express the love well.
Exactly.
They express the weed smoking well. Strawberry Fields Forever. I was like, I looked at Obi. I was like, that's straight roll up.
No, and it would have come from like 1967, yeah. So which would have been right in the peak of that.
Like, that's the shit Snoop would have played like in 1967, right?
Yep, exactly.
So you hear all of those things. And it's beautiful, but then you look at how quick they cranked it out. It's like, oh, okay. Now, because for somebody like me that didn't, get onto them until I was in my 20s, never really quite understood what all the hoopla was about. But as somebody that's a music lover, music learner, understands certain things about music, when I finally dug into their catalog, I was like, oh no, I get it. I get every last bit of it, and I can see why people are so enthralled.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces I want to pick up there, like.
Blackbird's my favorite shit because I think Paul's talking about racism.
Mm-hmm.
I can see him using like I can see that being a metaphor for racism.
Yeah, you can use that as a metaphor.
Paul singing Blackbird? Isn't that Paul singing Blackbird? Isn't that Paul singing Blackbird? Isn't that Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's man.
Like I said, they got stuff everywhere, dude. They're brilliant. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That song, coming back to Let It Be specifically, it is one of the simplest songs they have. It's just, it is, I mean, they play it in C major, which means on the keyboard they don't like even get on the black keys at all. Like it's just, and it's 4 chords. So in the real, I'll play a little bit. Like this is the first song I ever learned how to play on the guitar, and it's simple because we talk about it like all the other songs we've done are like 4 or 3 chords, or the parts I've talked about are 3 chords. This one's 4. It's got the minor 6 in it too, but it is simple rhythmically, like you said. It's simple chord progression too. So it's just like. I mean, you can play it a little more complicated than that, but that's why it's simple to learn when you're first starting, because you can play it just like that, right? So it doesn't require anything complicated. And that's probably one of the most famous chord progressions like in the history of music. I don't know if you've seen, or the viewers have seen, like it's kind of a joke band called Axis of Awesome, who play like the 4 chord pop song thing, and they play like one long series of songs that are all using these same 4 chords. Because I mean, like Don't Stop Believing is that chord progression. Green Day's When I Come Around is that chord progression. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of them that are all the same.
Gotcha.
General chord progression.
No, like when you said When I Come Around, I heard it. Like I heard it in my head. I'm like, oh, I got you. Now I got you. I can connect those dots. Yeah.
Yeah. and
do
they're
we?
obviously they're in different keys and stuff, but like the order and I mean it's 1-5-4, well no 1-5 minor 6-4, and
Right.
and it
Hold
just
on. So let me ask you
and it
something right
spins
quick.
around.
Right. So they freaky.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So they can sometimes go like 4 minor 6 5 1.
yeah.
Like
The,
ching 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 ching. Right.
and
Right.
the chorus. I mean the chorus is the minor 6. That's 5-4-1, and then it goes back around again. But it's um again, this goes to the point, not to belabor the musicality of it a ton, but it goes back to the point that um, that the songwriting or the chord progression is not a complicated thing. Like, um, this is a song, like, if you've never picked up a guitar before, you could probably not play it great, but play it in a recognizable way in like less than an hour. Um,
Yeah.
so
Like a
yeah,
freestyle beat.
yeah,
Boom boom clap. Yeah. Yeah. You can say something to riff over. It's good. Get you started. Shit. Yeah.
yeah. It is. It's beautiful. Um, Now, I don't want to dig into the lyrics a ton. Well, I want to dig into the lyrics some when we like compare the two, because I think that thematically they're talking about similar things too.
Okay.
But um, the reason I chose this song, "Let It Be," for "Keep Your Head Up," um, because the Beatles have a bunch of songs that would have worked in this kind of giving you advice about um, don't feel so sad kind of, and kind of keep going kind of thing. This is one of them. Hey Jude is one of them. All You Need Is Love is one of them. There's a bunch of them.
They got a bunch of them. Yes, they do. Yep.
um,
I agree.
I picked this one particularly because Paul McCartney addresses his mother in this too. Um, he uses
Okay.
the phrase Mother Mary, which is clearly a religious reference to, because he's talking about her coming to him in a dream. But he's told the story years later that it was his mother, who was also named Mary, who came to him in the dream. It was
Okay.
saying, "Let it be," and so he turned that into the song. So. Um, the song does not exactly center in the same way as "Keep Your Head Up" does on his mother relationship with his mother, and that relationship, but it does reference it, and it does use that relationship as part of, I guess, the metaphorical structure.
No, totally. It's kind of like that. That's that great writing stuff again that I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about. It is that his mother's name may be Mary, but because he's a great songwriter, he can frame it and make it a double entendre where it's like, oh well, you think he could be talking about Mary, like Mary Magdalene,
Yeah.
or the Virgin Mary. It
Right.
can take on a spiritual or religious connotation for you. That's writing skill,
Yeah.
high
Like,
level writing skill.
yeah,
So it
exactly.
seems
If
like
you
it's
didn't
simple, but
know,
it's like
yeah,
not simple. Just
yeah.
just sounds simple.
Yeah, exactly. And if you didn't know that his mother was named Mary, and that's one of the geniuses of it, is that you don't have to know that it was addressed to his actual mother for the song to make sense, right? Like it works on the religious metaphorical level, and it works on, because she's telling him, let it be, like just keep going and don't mess with it for a while, and everything will work out. I mean, that's kind of the message, right? um
Yeah, it works on all levels.
so
Mm-hmm.
the connection, or one of the connections here, to me, is that that we have to address, is like the comparison and contrast of the titular pieces of advice, right? The "Keep Your Head Up" and "Let It Be." The titles of the songs are basically the takeaway, right? They're the advice that is being given to the people. Um, and the takeaway, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, of the Tupac song, is that basically shit is hard and it's a setup, but you got to keep your head up, right? That's one of the last things he says too. But
Yeah, we ain't meant to survive because it's a setup, and even though you're fed up, you got to keep your head up. Yeah,
yeah,
Black empowerment. Yeah,
right.
Community empowerment.
Yeah, exactly. And the takeaway of the other of Let It Be is he says, when the brokenhearted people living in the world agree there will be an answer, let it be. Like, leave it alone for a while, and when you come back it'll be better. It's not always going, it's a sort of a your now is not your forever kind of message, like that it will come back around and get better. And the more I thought about this, the more I kind of recognized that there's a contrast in those messages too. I mean, they're similar kinds of messages, but to me, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Tupac song is about the fact that the world is set up to destroy you, but you have to keep going despite all of that. And it implies that there may not be an end to the darkness that's in front of you. And do I have that more or less okay?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a struggle song. Because one of the beautiful things about Tupac is that he motivates you to want more, even though he never really gives you a clear answer on what the solution is. And he'll tell you, it's like, well, I don't have the answer. He's like, but I can damn sure explain what the problem is.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah. And then the other one, Let It Be, I think the contrast is that it implies that these hard times are going to end, right? Like there's an end to the madness. There's an end to the thing. It says, I mean, the last verse is, when the night is cloudy, there's still a light that shines on me. Shine on until tomorrow, let it be. And then I wake up to the sound of music is the next line, right? So it's there is a dawn after the darkness in that song, in a way that I don't see in the other song.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I think that's a matter of perspective, because that's why I'm saying I'm just thinking about. Well, how about this? A lot of people before Tupac have expressed the angst that comes with growing up in the ghetto,
right?
In the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
The uplifting part of it, the part where the song picks you up, even though you understand the struggle and you belong to the struggle, is special. So even though you may not necessarily see it there in reference to his counterparts and peers, more uplifting and special than what anybody else before him and after it's done, in terms of the feeling that it evokes,
Yeah.
Because it makes you, because how about this? Tupac makes you appreciate these struggles too, in a way that very few artists can in any genre. It's like, no, he makes you appreciate the beauty of the struggle too, and how strong it can make you, and how beautiful we are in spite of this struggle and these setbacks and these adversities.
Yeah. That's the thing that I heard in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the contrast that I was trying to get at, maybe a little bit, and I don't know that I did it very well. Is that I'm not without digging into the lyrics too much. You just listen to "Keep Your Head Up," and it feels uplifting. Just the feeling of the song is uplifting.
He makes you feel uplifted about the struggle.
Yeah,
you do. He's empowering to his people. He is. He always has been. Some of it is the voice too. So we've talked about Method Man's voice.
Yeah.
And Cream. Tupac, same effect. And if we're talking like greatest voices ever, for me personally in hip hop, it's him, Method Man, and Biggie.
Yeah.
Because the voices take a hold of you as soon as that's Pac. Okay, what he's saying. Yeah. And it's deep, and it's powerful, and it's throaty, it's passionate.
Yeah.
They
got that rasp in there.
Right, it's unbridled. I was about to say there's a part of it that's raspy and untrained when he really gets furious or passionate. So his voice is really a powerful tool in how he utilizes getting the message across to you. I don't think there's any other rapper that could use his vocabulary and get away with it and be considered great, but they don't have his voice, they don't have his delivery. But most of what they don't have his intent, Andrew. People don't write music in this culture to try to uplift this culture. They write it to try to showcase what is going on with this culture for the purposes of making money. There is nothing wrong with that. But what makes him special and what makes this record special, well, he gives a damn. And it's sincere, and you can hear it.
Yeah, you can
hear that he
absolutely
really cares. Yep. And you can't buy that. I don't care how skilled you are.
And you can't fake it either.
That's what makes him right. That's what makes him better than almost everybody else who's ever lived, even though so many people have been more skilled. It's like, yeah, but your will and your intent isn't like his. As a writer, as a pillar of this community, yeah, it matters. Separates him from almost everybody else. Like everybody, like for me all time, the only people that I have ahead of Tupac are people that I just find to be so supremely gifted as MCs that I can't say that he's better than them. And that's Nas and Rakim. And that's like the
extent. It's a short list.
1, 2. Maybe Biggie on a good day when I'm like really feeling Biggie. It's just Biggie's subject matter isn't anywhere in the realm of Tupac's truth.
No. I mean, it's beautiful and wonderful, but it's certainly not the same, for sure.
Not touching it. It's not touching it. You know, the music is the same level, but if we talk about content and subject matter, no, it's not even a conversation.
That's an interesting thing. I've always thought of, just like in the wider culture, the two of them being 1, 2, 2, 1, whatever, like, or essentially equals, and that's an interesting way to differentiate them. And I follow that argument. Like that's a thing that I can understand and like take away from this.
So how about this? If Biggie had Tupac's content and intent, even if he would have passed prematurely, the way that he would be considered the greatest MC of all time, by leaps, that's how special Tupac's content and intent is. Like if Biggie were to have that, he would still be considered like leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else, Rakim and Nas included, because Biggie probably is the most talented MC we've ever had overall. Like the guy that can write the story, has the voice, has the delivery, makes the street record, makes the hit record, can do the collab record, can bust the freestyle, can influence the culture. Like, no. He checks all the boxes. He checks more boxes than any other MC, but that make you feel what Tupac makes you feel. He can't write Dear Mama. The closest he probably got to that was Juicy, or Things Done Changed off Ready to Die. But he's a chilling narrator. And vocally
he is. And we'll get more into him.
Yeah, we'll get him in.
But like, it's because he, like, I want to know more about him too. Like, so we'll get that into a different episode. I did want to say also that like the conclusions that the two songs draw, I think I said this already, but I want to make sure it's clear. Like the conclusions the two songs draw are basically the same. I mean, they get there different ways, but they're arguing essentially that no matter how it feels right now, you go to the next thing and the next thing and the next day and the next morning, and you got to keep your head up, and it'll be fine eventually, right? Or fine-ish, or more fine than it is now anyway.
Well, there's something very, I think part of the reason why, I think we're talking about, in one case a group, but in another case a culture, we're talking about the two most beloved figures in our respective cultures, I think. Well, let's speak to another reason why. There's something very workmanlike about them, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's something very workmanlike about these sentiments. There's something everyday people about it now, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's something about it that's applicable to like everyday life, because when we're having, because I love conversations like this to make me think, because when you just made that comment, or I guess that just your brief rhetoric about like what really the ending of the song, Let It Be, really represents and encompasses, I thought to myself, like, the first job that I had steady, I worked at Dave & Buster's in Marietta as a server and then as a bartender. They taught me everything that I knew about the hospitality business there. But I worked for a guy who changed my life, because he got me to respect myself enough as a man to like clean up my act. But he used to tell me, he's like, these doors are opening, whether you're here, whether I'm here. you know, and it was one of those messages me as a young man I needed to hear. Like, the world don't stop, you know?
Yep, exactly.
And so what these songs are really trying to say in a very nice and very poetic way is it's like, no, like, go ahead and keep your head up, keep your chin up, because it's not about to stop, and you still got to get up and live and see another day. You know, you gotta get up and put your pants on and go to work still. So, you know, get it together. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Workman, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard the Beatles called workmanlike, but it fits. Like Lennon and McCartney knew each other. They met each other when they were like 13 or 14, and like what I don't know what they called it then, but like what we would think of as middle school, and played music together like
secondary school
for forever and ever after that. Like they cut their teeth on, this is one of the stories actually that Malcolm Gladwell tells in Outliers too, that the reason one of the reasons, obviously they're supremely talented musicians too, but they're supremely talented musicians who also spent a whole like year and a half of their life playing in bars in Germany when they were like 18, 19, 20 years old. And they would play like, this is not like playing concerts. This is playing like being the bar band and playing like 8, 9, 10-hour sets, like all night long. And they had to learn enough songs to fill that time. And so they learned their stage presence, and so they worked incredibly, incredibly hard. And they only stopped performing like in big performances really after Shea Stadium, which was 65, 6-ish, when the audience were screaming too loud for anybody to hear anything. Like they're one of the only groups that have done that. I mean, and you could call them a boy band. I mean, that was their original, like, whatever, but they weren't put together by Lou Pearlman or whatever. They were, and so you hear the screaming for the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all of those other ones in the modern world, but it's not like this. Was like airplane taking off, kind of. You can't even hear through an amplifier somebody standing next to you, kind of loud.
Well, guess who I'm about to bring up? I'm about to bring up somebody that you've known longer than I have, actually, and that's my girlfriend from high school, Summer Murphy. You know, everything that you just said is what Summer's mother, Dee Dee, told me about the first time she heard and saw the Beatles when she was a teenager growing up. Exact same, everything that you just said. She's like, no. She's like, it's not like this Backstreet in. She's like that. She's like, that's like small potato. She's like, that's a small deal compared to what they had going on. She's like, she told me, I remember her telling me in her living room, she's like, you could roll all these boy bands together and the hoopla around them and put it into one, and it still does not equal.
Yeah.
And she was saying this to me with a straight face, and this was a woman who liked to joke a lot.
Yeah. No, the only parallel for it really is like Thriller era Michael Jackson. Like is that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think their fandom, the only thing comparable to it is what happened with Thriller. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some other people have had runs that have been like close to it. Like you could say that the Stones, you know, obviously come to mind from their side. Prince obviously comes to mind from this side, outside of Mike. So, but you know, like Rare Air, because like I said, when you start talking about Mike and Prince and the Stones, well, you're probably talking about the Beatles. Yeah, exactly. That's the list of people that are up at that level is very small. Right.
When you start talking about that level, we're talking about, you know, we're not filling up 2 hands.
No, definitely not. No, Stones. As a quick digression, we'll get to the Stones in a different episode too. But like we're gonna get to the Stones too. The Stones, to me anyway, don't hit the same way. I love their music, but it's not the same for me. Generally, I would explain it as like their peak is less high, but it lasted longer. Like, because they made music for, I mean, 30, 40 years. I mean, they're still touring now. So right, but they actually made albums for a longer period of time. Like actual. No, they made albums in the 90s and early 2000s, I think, too. Like they've they've made records for 30, 40 years. Yeah. Not horrifyingly embarrassing like a lot of 30 or 40 people have been doing. Like some people who try to do it after that amount of time, it's just like, But like songs like
Yeah.
"Start Me Up"
Let
were
it
like
be.
the '80s, right? Well, again, we'll
Start me
talk
up
about
to
Stones.
80s.
This is not the purpose of this episode. Um,
It start me up to 80s.
Start Me Up's in the '80s, yeah.
Man, that's freaking awesome.
Yes. So it goes. So the peak is not as high, but it lasts like a longer period of time.
Right. And there's something to be said for that too.
Yeah. And yeah, to me, like they're not comparable. Like it's like apples and oranges. It's two different things.
Okay. I hear people say that because you want to know what? I don't necessarily like riding around to the Beatles, but I love riding to the Stones. But I don't necessarily ever play the Stones in my house, and I play the Beatles all night in my house. Does that make sense?
They're for different things, right?
They're for different things. Yeah.
The Stones are better riding music, but
yeah, it is, dude. You can just ride to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like coming back around a little bit, the outlooks of these two songs, we're coming back to Let It Be and to Keep Your Head Up. I would say certainly the Tupac song is, I would definitely not use the word cynical, but it is more cynical than the Beatles one is for sure. About just like what the future holds, I guess. And that's a thing. This was as I was making notes. I've been thinking about this since we made this pairing. We made this pairing of songs, 3 or 4 months ago or something like that. But
maybe longer.
Yeah, who knows? It's been a while. That as I was making final notes, this occurred to me that the outlooks like about their future actually are borne out in their lives too. Like Tupac was murdered when he was 25. He was 25, right?
Correct.
And Paul McCartney's still making music and playing now, and he's almost 80. Like,
Paul. Yeah, I'm here, Andrew. I'm actually just pulling up my notes right quick that are on my phone right quick. So
okay, cool.
Because I want to see my notes that I actually wrote down about these songs right quick because I've been riding the whole time and haven't had a chance to stop.
Obviously, you can't access it then.
Right. But I think that you're spot on about a lot of this. Here we go.
Yeah.
But,
we don't want to wrap this up before we hear what you got there too.
Well, right. I said that was magnificent guitar playing going on. What year was that going on? That's that magnificent guitar playing for the year. So you already spoke to the chords. So that was what I was asking.
Let It Be was released in 1970. I don't want to go into this too much, but Let It Be and Abbey Road it's an interesting thing because Let It Be was recorded before Abbey Road, but was released after it. No, I did that backwards.
Okay.
I did that backwards. Let It Be Abbey Road was the last one released. Maybe I'm going to embarrass myself in the Beatles community here. Anyway, regardless, one of them was recorded first and one of them was recorded second, and they were released in the opposite order.
Well, that's funny because I also wrote, I said it feels dated and classic all at once.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
And I put in parentheses a little tabernacle because there's a little church organ going on in there. So they bought a little church, and I think you referenced that too with the Mary thing, and that's what I mean about. So let's go back to the songwriter that's hearing the church organ, and now Mary and the mom. You get what I'm saying about how that's subtle genius stuff. He's hearing the church organ. He's like, no, I can play with this. I can play with this as a writer, vocalist, as a guy, great at this. Yeah, those are the nuances. Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking something, and that's the thing that happens in gospel music, that happens in hymns, and happens in religious music also, is that they're also taking things that are not complex chord progressions, but you are expressing not complex things, but uplifting things that are designed to, and this goes for both of these songs, really, right? The songs, the purpose of the songs are, I think, both to uplift, to give hope, to show a light and a way forward.
Yeah, they're trying to fill the spirits of their listeners the same way gospel music is supposed to fill the souls of believers. Yes.
Cool. I could keep going, but that seems like a good, apropos place to stop now that you pulled up in your driveway too.
No, I'm not in my driveway, but yeah.
Or close-ish. Yeah. So Cool. This is fun, and it's more. It's not more fun. Obviously, I certainly feel like I talked a lot more this time. Like, um, so it was nice
I think there
to.
was more to dig into because I think the Beatles. And no disrespect to like Dylan or Springsteen, but this is like the Beatles, so you're probably going to talk a little more.
No. There's, and this is a teaser for the future or whatever. There are at least two more episodes we have like set up planned that are Beatles or Beatles adjacent.
Right.
So, and obviously, if we keep doing this for many years, we could do whole seasons with them if we wanted to.
Absolutely.
Because there's just so much to get into. But I think that's probably enough for now. So
yeah,
get all your people and all my people and all the everybody people to like it and share it and subscribe and all of that kind of YouTube algorithm nonsense. And we'll,
right.
I guess, get at you next time, right?
Yeah. Next time we get together to do this, I'm glad we got to definitely got to the second and third episodes quicker than we got to the first episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, working it out.
Yeah.